Americans throw away 103 pounds of spoiled food annually from their refrigerators alone. Today, I would love for you to come along and clean with me as I make every effort to reverse that trend in my home by cleaning and prepping my recent produce haul. My goal is to have clean, safe, grab-and-go fruits and vegetables for my family and not waste a bit. A quick thank you to Thrive Market for sponsoring today's video. More on them a little bit later. I have always known that washing produce is a must, but it wasn't until recently that I stumbled across Amy from the Cross Legacy and realized that washing it all up front would be a game changer for my family. I also happened on an article on today.com mentioning that the produce aisle is the number 3 germiest place in the grocery store, only coming in behind the grocery cart handle and the child seat. We all know that everyone touches produce before buying, so washing it isn't just a suggestion, it's a must. And today I'm going to wash up both store-bought and homegrown produce before we turn to storage and refrigerator organization. In the past, when I would bring home a big produce haul, I would simply find a spot for it in the refrigerator and wash it as I needed it. But that alone led to a ton of food waste and drove my kids to make less healthy snack selections based on the availability and time involved in getting it ready for on-demand prep. Recently, my son was asking for a snack and I suggested that he grab a mandarin orange. He didn't even know that there were any in there because of the way I was storing them, which is the catalyst and what led me to look for ways to change what's going on in our refrigerator and how we're storing our produce. Today, I'm starting off cleaning grapes and my homegrown pepper haul that I pulled out of the garden this morning. My peppers are going absolutely crazy and my kids love to eat them fresh. But this is going to save me a ton of time in getting them ready for them to go because now, after they're clean, they can just grab them straight out of the crisper drawer and eat them whenever they want, making sure, of course, that they're grabbing ones that are not spicy. And I did make sure that everything going in there was going to be kid-friendly and ready to go. Now, I'm washing everything in a simple mixture of vinegar and water. A recent study was actually done showing that vinegar kills 98% of the bacteria on fruits and vegetables. It's also known to kill some foodborne illnesses. Getting both of those out of the way before the food goes in the refrigerator and before little hands get all over it is really, really important to me. To complete the wash, I mixed vinegar and water and then let them set for 2 minutes, no more, as that starts the fermentation process of not what we want to do. We just want to clean it, make it healthy, and ready to go in the fridge. So after 2 minutes, I drain them into a colander, rinse them with water, and then let them sit for just a couple minutes before moving on to get them out on a towel. Fruits and vegetables are amazing snacks, but sometimes my kids want something else. And that brings me to the sponsor of today's video, which is Thrive Market. Thrive is my go-to place for healthy, clean snacks that I can give my kids knowing they're not getting any of the nasty chemicals or GMOs that I would not want in my home. Now, if you're not familiar with Thrive, you really need to be. They will change the way you grocery shop, not only because you can order online, but also because it'll increase the quality of food that you have in your home. At Thrive, they're on a mission to make eating healthy affordable and easy for everyone. You can shop thousands of best-selling organic foods and natural products well below the retail price. And if you do find it somewhere cheaper, they will match that price, guaranteeing that you'll be able to get the lowest price possible through Thrive. When you shop with Thrive, you can filter their catalog by diet or lifestyle, product type, or your favorite brands. Whether you're gluten-free, vegan, or keto, you can shop over 90 plus diets and values to find the right products specifically for you and your family. When you shop with Thrive, you can get everything you need. It's not just about food. They have non-toxic cleaning products, eco-conscious beauty brands, organic foods, eco-friendly cleaning supplies, personal care items, organic kids products, wine, meat, and seafood, fruit and vegetables, and more. Now, when you start your membership with Thrive, you have 2 different options. The first option is $12 per month, and the second is $59.99 per year, which comes out to $5 a month, which is a really great option. Now, if you don't save at least $60 back in savings during that first year, they will credit you back the difference. Through Thrive's You Give, You Join initiative, when you purchase a membership with Thrive, they give a membership to someone in need. This includes low-income families, teachers, and veterans, and gives them access to natural and organic foods and products, sometimes for the first time. Head over to thrivemarket.com/hometown homestead to receive 30% off your first Thrive order and a free gift worth up to $60. Plus, shop Thrive's 25% off fall favorite sale this week and enjoy the flavors of fall and stock up on the top products of the season. Jumping back to the produce, look how gross that water is. That was where the peppers were. So I did go ahead and dump out my water and refresh the vinegar. That is something that you can do just depending on how dirty it is before you move on to the next item that you're going to wash. Sometimes I dumped it completely out and started over, while other times what I had in the water wasn't dirty enough to demand that. Now, based on the volume of peppers that I had initially, I did have to run these in a couple different batches. Now, that isn't a problem except for space, of course. You can see I was trying to keep those all together, but I did want to point out while we're here that it's super important when you're washing things like peppers or even apples that have a stem, that you want to place them down in a way where water will not collect around the stem or even in the bottom of a pepper, just depending on how the fruit or vegetable is actually formed. Sometimes when you're laying them out to dry, you can be creating an actual pocket for the water to remain, which is the opposite of what you want to do here. We want to put these in the refrigerator totally dry so that we are not speeding up the decomposition process. Now remember, all of these are soaking on a 2-minute cycle. So I'm constantly running over to the timer on my stove to make sure that I'm getting them in and out of the water in the appropriate amount of time. But as you can see here, those carrots aren't quite long enough, or I should say they're not quite short enough to go all the way down in my bowl. So at the end of the first 2 minutes, I'm flipping them over and running 2 more minutes on the opposite ends. This will make sure that they're completely clean, tops and bottoms, before going in the refrigerator. Now on the apples, as you can see, they bob a little bit in the water. So you have to go back repeatedly and push them down, flipping them over to make sure every side is getting washed. And that is actually the same with the peppers. So this is not a hands-off process. It definitely takes a little bit of hands-on time. But I was able to wash this entire set of produce in about 30 minutes. That included a lot of camera changes and things of that sort. So this isn't something that will take a lot of time up front, but it does take a surprisingly large amount of time to dry. So just keep that in mind when you're starting a project like this. I actually have family in town and was heading out to my mother-in-law's for a dinner. So I washed all the produce, left it on the table to dry and out on the counter. And then when we returned home a little bit later, I was able to package it all up and put it away. If you are really short on time or you won't be around in order to monitor it as it starts to dry, then I would recommend putting it in the refrigerator until you do have time to accomplish that task. One caveat though, I will tell you that the fruit and vegetables actually last longer when properly washed and packaged. So things like strawberries, if you're going to put them in the refrigerator for a few days, you might have some get away from you. So do it as fast as you can, or just make sure that you're doing your grocery shopping on a day when you're going to have enough time set aside to clean it when you bring it in. Now, as you can see, I've moved on to strawberries and carrots. The strawberries are a little more delicate, of course, than something like a carrot. So I was very, very gentle when putting them in the bowl, making sure to inspect every single one. You do not want to put a strawberry or any other sort of produce into the refrigerator that's already starting to decompose. Now make sure to check through those very carefully. Now, as for the carrots, the water was absolutely disgusting. It was the dirtiest of everything that I had done. And that was just both ends of the carrot, so nothing extra in there. And it just really, really reinforced to me what we are actually putting in the refrigerator when we put it in there before we've had time to wash it. So make sure that you're taking the time to clean all of your fruits and vegetables, and it will really greatly increase the amount that your family is willing to eat just because the process is already done. The strawberries are another one that tend to float, so making sure to push those down a little bit, flipping them over, and then giving them a good rinse before you put them on the towel is really, really important. After going through this entire process, we do want to make sure that every bit of the fruit or vegetable is totally clean. Now, I completed the same process with my limes and avocados. Their water was so clean, I was able to reuse it, so that one was really surprising. I did, however, already purchase organic, so the waxes that they put on traditional limes and lemons was not on my produce, so that might be part of the reason why it was already so clean. Same thing for the avocados. I try to buy organic whenever I can, typically sourcing from Azure Standard. If I do run out of something in the middle of the month, though, there is a great grocery store about an hour away that I can go to and get a ton of organic produce. That's actually where I got the celery. My crew goes through celery pretty fast. We love to dip it in peanut butter as a snack. So I chopped off the ends and gave it a good rub down before I added it to the water. Based on the length of the celery, I did have to swap it to the other end and run it for another 2 minutes. So if time is a real issue, going with a larger bowl where you can fit everything down in, or just going ahead and chopping your celery into the size of sticks that you're going to want in the end would be a really good way to submerge the entire thing and not have to add the extra 2 minutes. I'll also say that I was working with 2 different bowls here, and that was enough for me. I might have been able to handle a third, but I definitely could have if I would have had help, of course. But keeping 2 things going on a 2-minute rotation, rinsing in between, and then getting them over to the towel was about the right amount of time. Depending on your ability to multitask, you might be able to do more or less, but just keep that in mind. Now, this is cilantro. We love cilantro, and I had a ton of it, so I went ahead and got it washed up, and then I just moved it to the salad spinner to dry. In the meantime, I took my salad mix, which was arugula and spinach, and got it soaking as well. Again, I did switch out the water a couple times. I just didn't film it for you every time because I figured that wasn't something that y'all really wanted to see every single time I did it. Just make sure to monitor the cleanliness. Then I pulled the celery out, got it rinsed down, and I'm making sure to lay it in the proper way here so that it isn't cupping and holding in the water. It's one that can really do that if you're not careful. So make sure to properly drain it off or you will spend quite a bit of time waiting. Now, I also washed green onions in with my salad greens because I figured it would be a fine mix. There's no flavors or anything to meld there. So I did get them clean, and instead of drying them off, I put them in a glass of filtered water up on my windowsill. That's where they're supposed to stay the best for the longest amount of time. And I'm currently on about day 7 or 8 with them at this point, and they look really, really great. So if you are storing them any other way, you might try this out. Once everything was dry and laid out, I went back and switched everything to the other side on the towel before I left to go to my dinner. This was really, really important because it allowed every bit to evenly get air, especially things like grapes. It's really easy to trap the moisture on the inside, and you do want them as dry as possible before going in the refrigerator. Things like the carrots are super easy because you just put your hand on a bunch of them and roll them at the same time. But then you have your more tedious items like the strawberries because you have to actually pick them up very gently. You don't want them to bruise, and then put them back down. As you can see, we have no shortage of produce in my house, and I wish I could tell you this was going to last us like a month or something, but in reality, with the number of hands I have that are going to grab all of the items that you see here, this is probably maybe a week if we stretch it, a little bit less, just depending on the needs of everybody else. So once we got home, I went ahead and started packing everything up for the refrigerator. My goal is to make this refrigerator as kid-friendly as possible. This means putting it in containers where they can easily reach in and get anything that they need, as well as putting it on shelves where they can easily access the items that they're looking for. To store the grapes, I put a paper towel in the bottom of a 1-gallon jar. This would work perfectly with a normal sized batch of grapes, although I actually did 2 batches, so it was about 10 total pounds of grapes. I ended up doing 3 jars to get them all in there. But the paper towel in the bottom is going to soak up any extra moisture that might or might not be left behind and help to keep them fresher longer. The same thing goes for the strawberries. You want to pack them gently in the jar, not pressing on them or anything of the sort, and then put on a canning lid and a ring. The reason you do this is those canning lids sealed down with the rings prevent air from getting in, and the air is going to be your worst enemy. So you want a fresh, clean lid, clean jars, and to seal those puppies up with a paper towel inside, and that is going to help keep them fresh as long as possible. I definitely will admit these did go in less than a week. We had no problems with anything going bad, and it worked out really, really well. I'm doing the same thing with my salad greens here. I'm keeping them in a glass container, paper towel on the bottom. That will help absorb any extra liquid and keep them fresh and ready to go at a moment's notice. I have one kiddo who loves to make himself salads, so doing something of this sort is really handy and takes all the prep time out of it. For the cilantro, you're going to store a little bit differently than the salad. The reason is that I want all of the ends together here. I'm going to snip off the bottom about 1/4 inch and then set them inside a glass of water. This is purified water. I'm not putting them in my sink water because I don't want the chlorine or anything of the sort to soak up inside there. But doing this allows the plant to continue to soak up water, keeping them fresher longer. They're not just going to sit in the bag that you got them in and get really nasty and slimy in the bottom of the refrigerator. So this is a good way to keep them fresher and to be able to utilize the entire bunch. Most typically when I'm buying something like cilantro, I'm using it in a sparing amount. So this allows me to continue to reuse that product for a longer amount of time without having to rebuy. We actually use the cilantro in a cilantro lime pork taco that we had this week, which will be airing on next week's episode. So if you're interested in some really great fresh meals that the kids will love, make sure to subscribe because I have a lot of great content coming up for the fall. When it comes to the celery, I cut off any remainder of the end that didn't look like something my kiddos would go for, and I also separated off the tops. I've done a couple different things with tops over my last couple years in the kitchen. One thing, of course, is to save them and put them in with any carrot or onion scraps to make your stock. But another thing is to dehydrate them and then put them in salt, and you've made your own celery salt. I find that this is a really awesome way to use the tops because they're super fragrant and fresh. Plus, it prevents the need to purchase one more thing to go in your basic pantry stock. So that is always a win here at our house. Now, while we're here, I want to take just a second to talk about storage. I know plastic storage was all the rage for many, many, many years, but the truth is that's just another way that microplastics are getting into our food and into our bodies. This is particularly true when putting hot leftovers in them or warming up leftovers that you've had in previous times. We have used glass storage for over 10 years, and the only reason that I've ever had to buy new is because we needed to increase the amount of storage we have just based on the growing desires of our family. If you are interested in swapping out for glass, go ahead and check the link in my description down below, and I'll show you the set that I'm actually using. The lids lock on really tight, and it keeps the food super fresh. Now with the carrots, I am peeling up some of them and making sticks out of the skinniest carrots in the bunch. The reason I picked the skinniest carrots is because those are the ones that would typically get floppy or go bad the first in the refrigerator. So putting them in the 3-pint jars really allows them to be quick grab and go. I also had some ginger here. I'm sealing it up again in glass storage, and I'm just going to put it in the back of the refrigerator. I love to keep ginger on hand. Not only is it great for Asian cooking, but it's also really, really nice to make a hot tea out of when people have sore throats or upset tummies. So we go through a lot of that heading into the fall. Now that we have everything washed up and packaged up, it's time to put it away. I'm putting my apples up on the second shelf, and I have one tiny orange left, which I'll put down in the drawer. I want to keep those as far away as possible because apples and oranges together tend to make each other spoil faster. So making sure to separate those is a really, really good idea. I'm putting strawberries as well as my grapes down on the bottom shelf because my kids will definitely want to get into those as soon as they can. I'm also taking the cut celery and putting it down there as well. My goal is to have whatever they will need as low as possible. In addition to fruits and vegetables, my kiddos love to snack on meats and cheeses. So those are down below in the really long drawer at the bottom of my refrigerator. Peppers are not going in the vegetable drawer. They're actually going in the opposite drawer with the slider shifted to fruit. This is supposed to allow them the proper ventilation and keep them fresher longer. So if you're keeping them on a vegetable setting, you might want to go change that and see if that increases the time you can get the produce to last in the refrigerator. Because the fruits and vegetables were clean and easily accessible, the kids went through them really fast, which I feel like is a huge blessing. Anytime they're snacking on healthier foods instead of asking for junk, mom wins. If you have any questions or extra food storage tips, make sure to leave them below. And before you go, don't forget to check the link in my description to stock up on your fall favorites today with Thrive Market and take advantage of their awesome sale.